Not all objectives can be achieved through military operations alone. Power is not the essence of everything. To realize our moral and ethical duty to bring our hostages home, we will have to make painful concessions.
Well, up to this point, Israel has not shown itself to want to make any concessions. And let's be very honest, the hostages have not necessarily been on the list of things that they seem to all that much care about. If indeed they cared about the hostages, Hamas had put a deal on the table months ago. If you remember when they kept saying Israel has a deal, well, at that point, Hamas was willing to accept a deal. The United States was using that term, Israel has a deal, even though Israel kept saying they don't have a deal. And there's been reporting about the fanatical devotion to avoiding coming to a deal of the Netanyahu government. So there's that. I strongly suspect that based on some of the reporting that's been coming out, that Gallant's issue goes beyond just the hostages and goes towards something specific to the war itself, meaning the losses and the morale of the IDF, especially after going through 1 year of combat. I will show you what I mean. Welcome to the Jamal Thomas After Hour Show. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is Jamal Thomas Show. Typically, I'm in the mornings. I guess I can call it the morning show since it's like 1 in the morning. When real men can't sleep, real men do the news. So here I am doing the news. There are a few stories that I really wanted to hit, and it just so happens I'm up, so I might as well hit them in preparation for tomorrow. Interestingly enough, check me out from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. The best damn morning show in the world. That's what I like to call it. It is not necessarily there yet. However, it will get there. If you guys are digging the content, give it a like, share it, subscribe. Definitely hit the notification bell. I get a lot of people who say they don't get my notifications. And as I said, check me out 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. I am here. I'm doing the news. Not just me doing the news. I'm bringing in people to interview, at least 3 to 4 interviews a day. This morning did not necessarily go all that well. Nevertheless, tomorrow I have a damn good show lined up, and you will get international and domestic politics going forward. So there's that. If you really dig the content, if you find yourself to be a super enjoyer of the content, you can always support through PayPal, Patreon, or for that matter, Super Chats. I will read comments, providing they're not racist, bigoted, or anything else. You can even take the piss out of me. I would probably even read that. So there's that. Every little bit helps. That is my spiel. Let's get into the content. Let's play the clip one more time, just to refresh. This is Gallant, effectively talking about force is not the end-all be-all, and that we will have to make painful concessions.
Realize our moral and ethical duty to bring our... Not all objectives can be achieved through military operations alone. Power is not the essence of everything. To realize our moral and ethical duty to bring our hostages home, we will have to make painful concessions.
Not something he wants to do. From his point of view, is something they're required to do. Let's be very clear. At the point in which you kill from 40,000 to 100,000 people on the low end, using force is not an issue for you. You have zero issue doing it. Clearly, you have gone on a killing spree that is utterly and entirely prolific. Under normal circumstances, military don't necessarily go after just civilians. They go after military objectives. But therein lies the rub. Part of the military objective of Israel is to expel or to exterminate those civilians, meaning they want the land. And in lieu of wanting that land, they need to get rid of the people who are on that land, either through starvation, deprivation, attacks, which is the reason why they are bombing hospitals, mosques, schools, UN buildings, doctors, Anybody that's delivering aid, or for that matter, denying aid going to the area. Why do you want to feed people or give them medical treatment if your objective is to get rid of them? It's that. So it's not an issue of a lack of being okay with violence. If they could have accomplished what they wanted through violence, they would have done so. Gallant is making this pitch. Now, I would point out that Gallant's pitch has more than just about the hostages. In fact, I would argue that the majority of that pitch has more to do about the current situation of the Israeli military that he cannot say, so the hostages come up as a way of him introducing this particular point. What I mean by that is that they have gone for over a year in regards to a military campaign, an army that for the most part is built for these kind of blitzkrieg attacks. Well, this has been somewhat of a war of attrition. They're still in Gaza. The war has expanded to Lebanon. They're definitely in Lebanon, and they're definitely taking casualties in Lebanon. Expanded to Yemen, and now has expanded to trading fire with Iran. Iran is a peer nation that could hit pretty much anywhere in Israel, and they know it. Gallant's issue is that the Israeli military is under a significant strain. And from his point of view, the painful concessions that need to be made, because he can't say the military is under heavy strain, what he will say is, we need to make a deal. They're the hostages. Gallant also wrote a letter effectively saying this military campaign has become aimless and we need to come up with additional objectives. And his reasoning is that when this campaign started, it was against Hamas. Now we've expanded to Lebanon, we've expanded to Yemen, we've expanded to parts of Syria, and we've also expanded into attacking and trading fire with Iran. These are problematic. You have so many enemies, and some of those enemies have shown the capacity to hit you and hit you hard. And even in the case of Hezbollah, despite the fact that they've been able to pull off the stunt with the pages, despite the fact that they've been able to kill the leadership, Hezbollah is still there. They're still firing rockets, and they're still fighting like hell in southern Lebanon. Here's another clip of Blunt. And this is him being more blunt in this front, saying the quiet part out loud. And it's in a different language, so I'll just read what he's saying. The situation has become worse. There are more open fronts, a higher number of wounded and killed soldiers, so we are in need of more soldiers. Now, they're asking him about conscription. Right here, will you support the new conscription law? Or at least will you refrain from opposing it? The issue isn't a political one, but a security and moral issue. Notice this is security. I didn't oppose it in the first opening, but the situation has become worse. There are more open fronts and a higher number of soldiers wounded. And unfortunately, a higher number killed. So we are in need of soldiers. It's that. We need more manpower because the manpower that we have is in bad mental health, bad physical health, being killed. And for the most part, we have so many enemies that in order for us to remain secure and have some level of integrity of the state, we need more men. Now, this is the ultra-nationalists that they're trying to bring into the fold. And before I even get to that part, just to back up that point a little bit more, this is an article that came out talking about the families and the soldiers' families and the things that they were saying about the troops. Meaning what they were saying about their family members, or for that matter, what the soldiers were saying themselves. Dissent in the mighty IDF, regular soldiers or regular fighters no longer willing to keep fighting, silence and silent disobedience. Some of these lines are just amazing. I call it disobedience of the rebellion, says Inbal, the mother of one of the soldiers on the team. Quote, they go back into the same building they purge every time they're re-ensnared. In the Xylon neighborhood, they've been there like 3 times. They understand it is pointless and pointless, even though they were a fifth of the Department of Workforce. The commander insisted that they enter Gaza. Quote, Because we're a small team that couldn't go on missions, they just stayed there and waited for time to pass. It was more or even more unnecessary. Here's another quote. This is from somebody named Rana. This is a pseudonym. Right here. Like other parents in the military, they fear their kids are going to get harassed. That's why they're using a pseudonym. So right here, quote, he came home happy, went to the meeting and came back off. He said he had been there for a very frank conversation between fighters who simply told anyone who could stay away from fighting to stay away. They said they were doing operations without an order of forces. For example, they were fighting with few forces. Basically, they didn't have the contingent that they were supposed to have when they went out to fight. Because there's no fix, then things are done halfway through, and the mission doesn't really get done well. They're not really well protected. When you're told they're going to replace you, it's like 50-50. The wards are empty. Everyone who's not dead or injured is mentally damaged. There are very few left who have returned to fight and not fully fit either. That was before all of the assassinations in Lebanon. Since then, he has been told, quote, I don't know what army they're thinking of entering Lebanon with, but there is no army. I'm not going back to the battalion, unquote. Here's another one. Interviews with more than 20 parents fighting and fighters indicate that this phenomenon is also occurring in paratroopers. Many soldiers refuse to fight in Gaza and vote with their feet. The sense of cohesion and mission that filled them for long months of the war has dissipated. Quote, they fought to the last drop of their strength until they reached a point where they could no longer continue, unquote, explains Idit, a mother of a fighter in one of the Commando Brigade units. Quote, every one of them is doing it quietly. It's not a movement. One goes to the commander and one goes quietly to his commander and says he can't and is taken out of combat or temporarily transferred to another position. Things are closing in on the squad and it happens all the time. There's a constant latent dropout from fighting. This is not disobedience, but dropout for reasons of burnout. Among mothers, this phenomena is called silent insubordination or gray subordination. This is also being reported in Western outlets like CNN, where they were running a story trying to show the plight of the Israeli soldier. And they're showing this plight with a person who committed suicide, as if this was a sad case because he had all of these kids and everything else. Missing the fact that the guy who committed suicide openly talked in the article about driving over live women and children in a bulldozer, basically committing an atrocity. And you can make the argument that the atrocities had become so bad that he just couldn't deal with it. But let's be very clear, he was committing an atrocity, as many of these people are committing atrocities. And I suspect that's even part of the problem. I mean, even German soldiers dealt with this notion of like the war crimes and how some of them, at the very least the ones with a conscience, how it plagued them deeply. So, yeah, you are going back and forth to the same place that you've cleared before. So you're back in Gaza again. You're back in Gaza again. You're back in Gaza again. You can imagine that will wear on the troops. It feels aimless. You don't necessarily know when the war is going to end, and they keep expanding the war aims. And the military is fatigued and tired. And even, as they pointed out, when they said they'll replace you, it's 50-50, meaning you may not get a rotation. You may just be stuck. This is pushing or putting a lot of emphasis on the conscription law. They're trying to get the Orthodox to fight. Despite trying to get them to fight, only 4% show up for service. Only 4% show up for service. So, when Gallant is like, we need a diplomatic solution to get the hostages. Okay, fair enough. They may want the hostages. And as he said, we need to make tough decisions. This is going to be painful. Okay, again, fair enough, considering you've murdered so many people and you've had these kind of rivers of blood that you've been swimming through. Okay, fair enough. You've committed one atrocity after the next. And the atrocity is not accomplishing what you ultimately want to accomplish. So he's saying, knowing full well the condition of the military, knowing they're taking losses, especially in southern Lebanon, we need a deal. We need to come to some kind of agreement. We can't keep this up like this. And, or for that matter, We need to come up with a new assessment on what we need to do to go forward. Now, Netanyahu, for his part, came out and says, I have no idea what he's talking about. He said that statement is bizarre to me because obviously, and to be fair to Netanyahu, Gallant knows exactly what they're trying to accomplish. We're going to clear the north. We're going to clear southern Lebanon. We're going to put settlers in the north, and we're going to put settlers most likely, or try to, in southern Lebanon, with the idea that we can get those people back to northern Israel. Now, keep in mind, part of Netanyahu's war objectives was to have those people to be able to move back to northern Israel, with the thought being, this is my objective. This is why I'm going into Lebanon. This is why I'm having this attack on Lebanon. But again, the military has been fighting for a year, and the condition of that military is not necessarily at its best. And I guess despite what they are portraying as we are winning. And don't get me wrong, understand what I mean by, look, for resistance groups, the issue is to deprive the enemy of their objective. It's not like Hezbollah is going to go rummaging through Israel. It's not that. It's you have an objective that you're trying to accomplish, and I am depriving you of that objective. Or in the case of Hamas, you are subjugating us, you are occupying our territory, so we are going to make your life miserable. There's not going to be any moments of rest. You can kill us, you can kill a lot of us, you have the distribution of force that you can use against us, but all things being equal, you are not going to feel safe. Meaning, they're not fighting a military to military. It's not like Russia and Ukraine. The dynamics are different and the objectives are different. Over the last few days, Israel has killed 343 people. They have the ability to do stuff like this. Meaning you can blow up neighborhoods. You can do that. You can do that. But is that really going to win you the war? Which is the issue. I go back to my first point. Militaries don't necessarily wantonly just slaughter civilians. That is typically not the point. Usually they're trying to accomplish a military objective, and in pursuit of that military objective, people get killed. Israel has fought this very differently because part and parcel to their objective has been revenge, or for that matter, collective punishment, or for that matter, expulsion and extermination, and to create a situation where there is nothing to go back to, everything is flattened, everything is destroyed, there are no public services, those people would have to leave or go somewhere else. That's been the objective, that's been the point. We are going to use this to create greater Israel. I guess what it boils down to, though, now in the video here, is whether or not they're capable of sustaining this. Or for that matter, whether or not Hezbollah, meaning Hezbollah seems to be willing to pay the price, especially considering what is taking place in Israel right now, where so many people are leaving, the economy is in tatters, and Israel has exchanged fire, meaning it is very possible that Israel is stupid enough to attack Iran again and get them further involved into the conflict on the behalf of the resistance. So I would imagine Gallant looks at this, takes a more sober assessment, and says, our troops are hurting. We need to come to a deal. Or we need to make some kind of concession. Something needs to happen, but we can't keep this aimless war going. And by the way, just be clear, I don't think that to any degree Gallant has an issue with this. Meaning he's perfectly okay killing all of these people. He's perfectly okay slaughtering all of these Palestinians or the Lebanese and everything else. He's perfectly okay in doing all that. My contention is that it has more to do with the condition of the military, meaning that statement and this attempt at trying to get more bodies on the battlefield has more to do with his awareness of what I just said in regards to the condition of the Israeli military. And it's been a year, and it's only going to get worse. I would imagine he knows that. So for all of this talk of we're winning, are you winning? Are you really winning at this point? Are you safer than you were on October 6th? Meaning, before Hamas launched their attack on October 7th, are you safer today than you were back then? The answer is undoubtedly no. Your vulnerability has been shown to be lacking, something that wasn't the case on October 6th. Meaning, there have been real world phenomena that has effectively happened with all of this. Israel becoming a pariah nation. There's that. Many of the countries in Europe decided we're not even giving you weapons. I mean, even Europe, you're losing even Europe in this situation. So the deals that were being made with the Arab states, meaning Saudi Arabia, etc., okay, those are off the table. Iran is having military exercises with Saudi Arabia. That is astonishing. Like, these are events that have been taking place as a direct result of Israel losing its fucking mind. So yes, I agree. You do have the capability of killing a lot of people. You can kill civilians left and right. Israel is prolific at killing women and children. Good job on that, I suppose. Winning a war is different. And in order to win this, you would have to be able to take and occupy southern Lebanon. You would have to be able to take and occupy northern Gaza. Now, you may be able to do that for northern Gaza because that's basically an open-air ghetto. I have great doubts about southern Lebanon, especially considering what some of the reporting is about the casualties that they've been taking. And I would say the reporting on some level is backed up by Gallant, right here, who is saying the situation has become worse, there are more open fronts, higher number of wounded and killed soldiers. Right here, unfortunately, a higher number of soldiers killed. We need more bodies. We need more bodies. Being triumphant is one thing. Propaganda is one thing. What's true is typically something else. I don't know what this ends up with. Meaning, I don't know how you kill 40,000 kids and then we go back to some kind of normality in this situation. And I would imagine that Israel doesn't even seem that it's trying to reach normality. They are using this in order to expand their borders that much further to create this greater Israel. So how this turns out, I have no idea. It's utter chaos. And considering it's utter chaos, and it didn't need to be this way, I say that because the reality of it is the U.S. provides 70% of the war cost. So 70% of this is supplied by us. Or for that matter, this all by us, all supplied by us. 70%. We're funding 2 wars. Like literally funding nearly an entirety of 2 wars. Let that sink in for a moment. Let that sink in. All of these atrocities that they're committing, we are paying for 70% of it. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all. I can't sleep either, Brother B. I'll talk to you guys in a few.